Time is a very big problem for a lot of people because you have to remember how you were raised. Okay, this is a big deal. Time was crucial the way that you were raised. Everything was about time. You had to be somewhere on time. You had deadlines. You had timed tests in school, specific times where you had to do things for your parents. And then you were trained to go to work and trade time for money. So what it did was it gave you an inappropriate exaggeration of what time is like for you, because that was the way that you experienced it. And then you have what you believe are really harsh consequences to not being able to meet things in time. Like, what happens if you don't pay your bills in time? What happens to your credit score? Stuff like that. What if I don't make these sales in time? I'm going to be in trouble. So most of your relationship with time is not fun and light and expansive and abundant. Okay. It's very tight. It's very rigid, and it's very consequential. Now, here's what you have to know. You have the ability to manipulate time. You've always had the ability. You've done it many times in the past. You just didn't realize you were doing it. The biggest ahas you can give yourself is if you really sit in this idea, okay? Think about if you're in pain, or you're doing something that you hate, or you're with a person that you can't stand, or you're going through a really rough something or other. Time drags on so slow, it's unbelievable. If you've never sit and watched a clock for 5 minutes, just sit and watch time pass with a second hand on a clock for 5 minutes. It seems like you're there for a month. But when you're not paying attention to time and there's no consequence, and if you're doing something that you love, it just flies by. So what is the key to understand there? First, how you experience time has everything to do with how you observe it, how you watch it, what you attach to it. Because time does not exist the way that you think that it exists. There's a law. It's called Parkinson's Law, right? It was developed by a man named Northcote Parkinson. It says work tends to fill the time allotted. Meaning that once you state something surrounding time, this is going to take this much time. I hope that I can get this done in this much time. What you do is you fill the space and time in your head with what you think is needed in order to complete the task. But that's only your perception. That's only your perception. If you were to write down on a sheet of paper 2 vertical lines like this, okay? What do you have between these 2 lines? A space, right? What did Einstein prove? That space and time, you can't have one without the other. The moment that you think of time, you create space. And whenever you create space, you create time. So between these 2 lines, when you're looking at some kind of body of work that you're going to do, you want to earn a certain amount of money, right? You want to beat a deadline. You want to hit a goal, whatever. First of all, you write down, I want this goal by such and such date, okay? So now when you do that, you've created a space between now and that date. So nature abhors a vacuum. When you create a space, what do you put in the space? Your perception of what it's going to take to hit the goal within that space. That's how you perceive time. But it's only your perception, and most of it is based on past experience. What does that mean? It means that if you change the idea of what your perception is around what it's going to take to hit a goal, you could start to instantly hit stuff. Everybody's capable of instant manifestation. But that requires that your mind is completely clear of any antagonistic ideas that are going to keep you stuck in your time model. Here's the space, okay? Here's a work that I'm going to do to hit a goal, right? I'm going to hit that goal over here. Now, when I do that, I immediately put what I know into that space. I dump my thought process into that space. I'm not doing it consciously, but I'm doing it unconsciously. You know how much you've made in a year, but you have erroneously or falsely attached the income to the time. It has nothing to do with the time. It has everything to do with the amount of money there. Because when I say I could help you turn your annual income into a monthly income, you already did your annual income. You already did it. You've done that number. That number is real. It's part of your belief system. It's part of your past history. You did it. So if we take the number that you already know how to do and we manipulate time, We can move that number from 12 months to a month very easily. That's why I don't generally start off with, I want to make a million, I want to make 10 million, I want to make 100 million. I start off with something that you've already done and show you how to 12x it in a short period of time. When a person breaks through that, accepting a bigger number in your consciousness is easier. The amount of money that you make is relative to the amount of money that you think you can make. If you think you can do it, you can do it. If you don't think you can do it, you can't do it. But that has nothing to do with what you're capable of doing. The problem is that when we get into picking numbers, financial numbers, when we get into problem solving, when we get into the daily work that we're doing, we're crushed by what we think is the consequence of time. That does not allow you to expand into, remember, your job's just a decision. How it's going to happen is God's job. But if you have doubt, worry, shame, guilt, whatever, outside pressure from somebody else, you're going to destroy the time factor for yourself as far as what you're capable of doing in a short period of time. Making money in a month is easier than making money for 12 months, right? Like Proctor said to me, why the fuck would you work all year for 50 grand? He's like, how hard is that? I'm like, it's terribly hard. It's terribly hard. The amount of hours and time and frustration and travel and gas and all that stuff to work for $50,000 for a year when you could do it in a month? Why would you work all year for the amount of money that you make in a year when it's easier to do it in a month? So you got to start thinking that way. Don't start thinking, I don't know how to do it. How's that going to work? Or you just need to start thinking that way. Tell yourself it's easier to earn it in a month than it is a year. You don't need to know how right now because the how is right in front of you. For each one of you, it's right in front of you. Absolutely right in front of you. You just don't think it because it doesn't compute with what your model of your reality is. Every one of you could take last year's income and do it in a month this year. But the problem is that you look back and you attach all the things that you did to get that, to earn that amount of money. And you think to yourself, well, it took a year to do that. How the hell am I going to do it in a month? By making it easier. That's how. But then there's nothing there. Your mind scrambles. It's like, what? What's going on here? And you have to practice detaching from the how. The how is already here. You couldn't have the desire. You couldn't want to do it without the how being here. And the how's not your job. The how's God's job. Your job is to just start thinking, I want to take my annual income and make it a monthly income. That's all you have to start with. If you do anything more than that, you're attempting to create it out of some pressure inside of yourself, which makes it more difficult and confusing and all the more, right? It gets nuts. So that's what becoming 12X is about in June. But for you guys, you got to stop thinking about this idea of time as being some restrictive thing in your life, because it isn't. It's as expansive and easy as you want to make it. But you have to step into that from an acceptance perspective. Just start saying that we're going to do it. And then the how is going to show up to do it, because the way to do it's already there. So what we're doing here is we're separating the resistance inside of ourselves from the experience that we've had in life and allowing a new space to come in, right? Where we can conceive of something completely different. That's, by the way, that's all that was behind Christ's miracles, by the way. Christ could see the truth in everything and go right to it because that was the truth. Everybody else looks at it and they think about the mathematical formula in their mind based on whatever it is that they're looking at. Like, how does this happen? Where, show me how. And then you get stuck and you don't create the miracle. What did I say your greatest power is? Your ability to choose. You can think one moment, I'll be great to earn it in a month. And then you choose to go back and make it hard, right? I'll leave it with you there for today, okay? Just sit with that. Really sit with that.